This SG is the craziest one I've ever seen. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, we dive into the world of ultra art guitars within the Gibson family of brands. These are known as the Crimson Division. They get that name because as they go through the custom shop, they're marked off by red tape to make sure the employees know that these are ultra top tier special instruments. So usually these guitars are pretty fancy and they have a few different styles of fretboards. You can get the regular ones, or like in this photo demonstrates the big four. You get the flames on the beautiful 2018 Ice Flame. If anybody's selling one of those, feel free to let me know. Only interested in the 2018 first year version though. But then you've got the butterfly inlays that you find on many of Ultima's. This style is called the Tree of Life. Then over here, very similar but chalice theme, it's called the Harp Lady because you've got a lady over here. So naturally, these things are very expensive. In fact, my Dragon Les Paul is probably one of the more expensive guitars in my collection, being a one-off Les Paul. But today, feast your eyes on this thing. What a fantastic top for an SG. Mix that with this dark purple finish, it makes it look way more exotic than a regular SG Custom. If you pump up the contrast, it gets extra explosive too. I can't even remember the last time I saw a purple SG, outside maybe the Goddess series, but this is just on a completely different level. But it's got the Vibrola tailpiece on here, but it's not actually a Vibrola unit. For me, the coolest thing about those things is the look, not necessarily the function. So the fact that we've got it, but we don't have it, is really cool to me. It looks like there might be something custom engraved right up there. But our tailpiece actually has additional engravings on here. That's when you get crazy high within the Crimson Division. Some guys think it looks a bit gaudy, but these are mainly a display piece, showing off what Gibson can do. Typically though, they don't engrave the bridge, just the tailpiece. But our covers over here, the white plastics were a nice choice. It helps it pop against that dark purple finish, but you can see our pickup covers were also engraved. I particularly like that we have this diamond pattern in the center that hasn't been engraved though. But that's not all. If you look over here at the knobs, these are like the Gibson HP series. They're gold. It wouldn't surprise me if it's like real gold on these things. And then you've got abalone toppers, which is a little bit easier to see in this photo over here. But that's just the body of this guitar. The reason I wanted to share this is the headstock. Look at this thing. It was kind of funny. The day I found the photos of this SG was the first day I had actually saw this inlay design, because an auction place sent me a catalog of an upcoming sale that happened to have a Les Paul Ultima with that headstock. And that's the original reason why I fell in love with 70s and 80s Gibsons, is the fact that they had so many different headstock styles. Things like the 25-50th anniversary Les Paul, the Les Paul Artist, the Les Paul Artisan. There's just so many cool freaky ones out there. So having the vine on the headstock of this one was quite intriguing. You can see our truss rod cover also has additional engravings as everything else did. Although surprisingly, they did not do the tuner tip. Sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. But we've got a matching purple quilt veneer headstock with the Gibson Mother of Pearl logo. And you know what? Now that I think about it, this is very similar to the 25-50th anniversary Les Paul because it had a vine, it just had other stuff going on and numbers over top of it. Now, unfortunately, I could not find a photo of the back of this, so I'm not sure if that's a quilt top and then they've got the mahogany on the back, or if that's just a straight up quilt maple body, because Gibson's done it both ways in the past. For example, the SG Supra is just a straight up maple body. That's two pieces, so it looks like a traditional two-piece top, but you flip it to the back and you see, oh no, that's just the entire body being two pieces. But other models like the SG Supreme, it just actually has a top, kind of similar to the SG Modern. But again, those are Gibson USA production, not exactly Crimson Division. I believe Wildwood was the original dealer that got this in the mid-2010s era, and if I had to guess, it's probably just a quilt maple body. It's that cool. And we can only speculate what the neck might have looked like. And also, if all that wasn't enough for you, this has the Tree of Life inlay style that once again utilizes mother of pearl as well as abalone to help accentuate your berries or flowers, whatever you want to call them over here. It's kind of hard to put a price on something like this. I would assume it would be somewhere around $30,000 to $50,000, but who knows? As far as I'm aware, it's not for sale at this point in time, because the current owner seems pretty happy about it. That's how I found it. He was posting about it on a Facebook group. Here he was standing with it on stage, although he says he rarely plays these guitars because he has these more of a display piece. And that's right, I said these. Wait until you see the other cool guitars in his collection. This one dials things up a notch. This one's fancy in a whole bunch of different other ways, so we don't have the crazy explosive quilt that's in your face. We've got a very statement piece, blistering red. Kind of reminds me of the Year of the Dog Les Paul that we talked about in this episode. But we really need to take some time to talk about this one because it's got so many cool little Easter eggs about it. So first, let's start with our headstock. That is known as the flighted F-hole. That's what you found on the ES artist guitars. So to see that on a semi-what modern production guitar is really uncommon, and it's great that they brought it back, especially still having that semi-70s Gibson logo to it. And it looks like this one does have the fleur-de-lis engravings on the tuners like I was talking about, and then of course you get a matching style truss rod cover. Moving down our fretboard, he must be a fan of the Tree of Life, coming out of our little pot down there. Although this one is a little bit different, because if you remember, this one did not have any type of a banner around the 12th fret, whereas this one does. I can't quite make out what it says though. But now let's move to the body. Besides all the blingage and other things we need to talk about, is there something that looks different about this Les Paul? Take a look at your cutaway. That is a Florentine cut. So there actually are a few Florentine cut Les Pauls out there. There's a Guitar of the Month, LP 295 that has it, and then there was one around 2008 that was also called the Les Paul Florentine that had that cut. It had a Bigsby and a nice burst finish. I do have a separate review and demo if you want to check that out. So that kind of harkens back to some older Archtop guitars, so it makes this Les Paul look a little bit fancier. And since everything else is blinged out, it kind of works having this ultra sharp cutaway. And what's even more impressive is it has so many layers of binding around it. But after that, we've got our gold knobs, we've got our engraved golden pick guard, matching pickup covers, 3 pickups in case you missed that, a fancy tailpiece also harkening back to Archtop guitars, a super fancy poker chip, and then would you look at that, an arm guard. So kind of like a really fancy upscale 295, or maybe even paying tribute to Mary Ford Les Pauls. There's just so many fun Easter eggs. It wouldn't surprise me if the back of this one has like a heel carving like sometimes they'll do. But he called this one the Gibson Custom Shop Les Paul Custom Scarlet, and that's the only photo I could find of it online. But the next one within his collection is a little bit dialed back. This is just a regular Les Paul Custom Ultima. These are relatively common guitars. It's not like his other two that are like complete one-off customs. There are quite a few Ultimas in the world. But I can tell this is actually a fairly early Ultima because it still has the custom shop banner, just like the very early Les Paul Elegance had. So this is likely late 90s, unless he had them reissue that spec later on. But this time for our tuner tips, we've got the Grover Imperial step tuners, probably in a pearloid and or a pearl material. Again, with the engraving pretty much everywhere. And then this one is our Harp Lady inlays. And if I know anything about these fancy inlays, they're better appreciated in person, like my Dragon Les Paul. Again, take a look at these. It might look a little bit gaudy in photos, but trust me, in person, it truly is the center point of the entire thing. The way the inlays reflect the light, it really dances and comes to life. But then when we get to our body, it's a really nice 2-piece flame maple top. Really wide the way I like it. We only have 2 pickups this time, but of course we get all the engravings, but this has a Nashville style bridge. Now the binding on these can sometimes actually have an abalone layer in the center. Another good example of one of those is a Bats in Flight Les Paul, the original run that's in purple. If anybody's selling one of those, definitely let me know. But this photo, you can see that effect a little bit easier. But what makes this Ultima a little bit more special is the fact that it looks like we've got a mini toggle switch right here on the front. It reminds me of my old Super Standard. Super fancy guitar, and then it's just got one of these dinky switches in between. I've never seen an Ultima have that before, so that makes it pretty cool. So thank you, Wayne, for sharing your collection, but since we got some time left tonight, let's check out some other Crimson Division guitars. There was also a run of Bella Voce Les Pauls. There's quite a few of these, and we've documented them in other episodes. But that's another fretboard style I know of. I'm not sure if they call that Bella Voce or if they have a different name to it, but they're pretty fancy guitars. But these came in a whole bunch of colors. For example, here's a green one. I like these because they also have the arm guard, but the backs of them feature heel carvings just for a little bit of extra flair. And they simplify the headstocks. Well, it feels weird to say simplified because we've got the binding, and then we've got the abalone binding. Your tuners are pretty fancy. And then we've got the flame maple veneer with Gibson abalone logo, but we don't have the giant custom in the center because they really wanted you to see the flames. But your back plates were engraved Bella Voce. Here's a cool Cobra burst version, but if you'd rather have inlays in the headstock, they also do that, just on a different model. But it's also important to note that the Crimson Vision just isn't all about super ultra art guitars. That's where a lot of the high-end jazz archtops are made today as custom orders. For example, here's a Crimson Division LeGrand. If you need to learn more about that model, you can check out this review and demo. But that doesn't stop them from getting fancy over here either. Here's the Gibson abalone fleur-de-lis cloud inlay. I mean, that's some really top-tier abalone too. And then look at the back, all quilted, 5-piece neck, double headstock veneer, front and back. You get the mother of pearl plaque. That's a pretty crazy Archtop. But as I leave you today, there's actually a funny story behind this photo I shared with you guys earlier, and I didn't remember it till just now. So about 3 or 4 years ago, this listing showed up on Reverb, and it was 4 of them for sale at the same time. I think they were asking like $25,000, which do keep in mind, this was around 2019-ish, so the market still hadn't quite went too crazy yet. So I had actually almost bought this awesome collection. That would have been cool to have documented all these, but I think another dealer beat me to the punch as we were trying to work out a good price. But at the end of the day, these art guitars, there is a very limited market to them, but just because they're pretty does not mean that they don't deserve to be played. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's Eye Poppin' episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.